In this section, we'll see what are few things that you can do in terms of troubleshooting if your VS Code is properly connected to your Salesforce or not. If you're able to open that Salesforce org from our VS Code by clicking on this button. This section is mainly for the people who are still having an issue connecting your VS Code with your Salesforce org. In case if you are not able to see this section as soon as you open your VS Code, so if you are troubleshooting this section where you are not able to see this part, do not worry, give some VS Code some time. When you initially load this VS Code, initially when you close this and open this one, this section would not come up. If you can give the VS Code at least 2 minutes or so, this section would be updated where you would be seeing this changes if you have already authorized an org and set the default org in your VS Code. So this is something that you can wait for some time and you would be able to see that changes happening. If you are switching from one folder structure to another folder structure, same thing applies again, where you have to just wait for at least 2 minutes or so where the VS Code would be activating that extensions. You would be seeing this updated shortly. In case if that is not the issue that you are facing, in case if you are not able to authorize the org itself, if you have initiated the authorize command using Ctrl+Shift+P and authorize an org, if you have seen this running for a while and you do not see the browser tab being open for a while, so in case if you are still trying to understand why is the Chrome tab that is not been opening up and you do not see nothing is happening, this would run for a longer time. I do not see any changes. One thing that you can check is try changing your default browser. In case if it is set to Chrome, change it to Edge or something. If you have this authorize or running for a longer time and no Chrome tab is opened, if that is your default browser, try changing the default browser in your system to Edge and then initiate this command once more. This time you should be able to see a tab opening up. Then you can enter the username and password, which would help us authenticate or authorize the VS Code to your Salesforce org. So this is one more troubleshooting that you can do. In case if you are not able to see any of these commands, use Ctrl+Shift+P and you do not see authorize an org. In case if you are just seeing these three options when you use your command palette, that means you do not have a project set up yet. So in order for us to get the other options, which is authorize an org, create an Apex class and other commands that you would see, first in the command palette, in the VS Code, create a project with manifest, follow the steps that we have discussed, and that way you would be having a folder structure. After that, you should probably be seeing this authorize an org and other commands that we have when we search for SFDX. Right, so the VS Code would be updated with this other list of options that we have. But before that, you would be only seeing this SFDX create project. Feel free to set up the project structure and then you should be able to see all the commands that we are seeing on the screen. So that is your troubleshooting point number 3. In case if you are still having a trouble where you cannot see any of these commands, one thing that you can do is initiate the terminal where you can do SFDX and check same thing that we have checked from the command prompt to see if you are getting any options here. If you are getting these options, that means CLI has been properly installed. If you're not getting these options, that means there is something that is wrong at the CLI level. If you're not seeing these options when you do SFDX from the terminal, the chances are either the CLI has not been installed or the CLI that you're using is having an issue. If it is already installed, try using this command saying SFDX update and hit enter. That is where the SFDX CLI that we are using gets updated so that you have a latest version that you can use. In case if your CLI is not been installed, go ahead and install that. So that way you have a Salesforce CLI installed and then you can get started with this entire process. So when you initiate an SFDX update, it would update the current version to the latest version that we have, and it might take some time for this to happen. So these are the troubleshooting steps that you can do in terms of understanding if your VS Code is connected to your Salesforce org. At the end, if I click on this button open org, it should open the default org that I've set in a browser where I can land onto the home page. Feel free to reach out to us in case if you are still having an issue that is not being covered. We can come up with another section where we'll touch base on those issues that you are facing. So that is the end of this section. In this section, we have talked about what are the troubleshooting steps that we have done in terms of identifying where exactly the issue is when you are authorizing an org. If nothing is happening, try validating the approaches that we have discussed. First, check if the default browser is the issue. Second, check if you have waited enough time for the VS Code to show up these options if that is not visible to you. And three, check if the CLI has been installed using the terminal and initiating an SFDX as a command to see if you are able to see commands coming up as suggestions. If the CLI is not installed, feel free to install it. If that is not the case, if you still have a CLI and you are having an issue, try updating the CLI to the latest version. And last but not the least, in case if you have done everything and you are still not able to see it, try closing the VS Code once and launch it once more so that it gets the latest changes updated. So these are the things that you can do in case if nothing is working. Last but not the least, you can update the VS Code. You can get the latest VS Code version to see if there is anything issue with this VS Code. So these are the 6 troubleshooting steps that we have talked about to understand if you are stuck with your process of setting your VS Code to connect with your Salesforce org. So that is the end of the section. We'll meet on the next section where we'll get started with process of retrieving the changes from Salesforce org to our local and deploying the changes that we have in our VS Code to the Salesforce org. In the previous section, we have looked at how exactly we can connect our VS Code with our Salesforce org. And we have also gone through the troubleshooting steps in terms of understanding if there is any issue that you're facing while setting up this process.
Hey guys, if you like this video, do like, share and subscribe to SFDC Quest.